108 years ago today, the most lopsided sporting event in American history took place. On one side of that story was none other than John Heisman. Far from being a testament to his genius and dominance, this game was probably the most unprofessional and unsportsmanlike thing in American sports history, not including off the field antics from the likes of Tanya Harding.
Why?
John Heisman was a polymath of the sports world. He played and coached football, basketball, and baseball at many levels, and was an early pioneer in the evolution of football, including aiding in the implementation of the forward pass rule. Rule changes to college football were forced upon it because players kept dying, including 19 deaths in 1905 alone. John Heisman was the coach at Georgia Tech when they played Cumberland College on October 7th, 1916. The final score ended up being 222-0. It's hard to imagine how that's even possible, but that's because Georgia Tech wasn't really playing a football team. Cumberland had beat Georgia Tech 22-0 in baseball the year before, a game that Cumberland apparently snuck professional players into. Heisman was also the baseball coach at Georgia Tech. Heisman was simply not going to let this go, so he carefully plotted his revenge. Cumberland didn't even have a football team in 1916, as the sport had been canceled by the college. However, the schedules had already been made earlier in the year, and Georgia Tech was set to play Cumberland. A forfeit didn't count as revenge to John Heisman, so he threatened to sue Cumberland for $3,000, which would be $186,000 today. Heisman himself offered $500 of his own money for traveling expenses to Cumberland just so he could get his revenge. Not only did Cumberland not have a team, they didn't even have any equipment. The school ended up recruiting law students and frat boys, most of whom never played football in their lives. This only worked because the players were promised a share of the $500. They never ended up getting equipment, but they did manage to sneak into a high school at night and steal uniforms. And so, a petty man got his revenge against a team of less than amateurs that was cobbled together at the last minute with a bribe on the threat of being sued. Though the game was petty and rigged, the facts and figures from it are hilarious, although a few are also disturbing. Georgia Tech scored 32 touchdowns, but only ran 28 plays. That's because there were 7 defensive touchdowns, 6 kick return touchdowns, and 1 touchdown made by Georgia Tech's kicker who recovered a fumble during a Cumberland kick return. 11 different players for Georgia scored touchdowns. Cumberland ran 19 more plays than Georgia. You get at least 4 plays before you turn over the ball or punt, but Georgia scored on 18 of its 28 offensive plays. In other words, Cumberland was using all of their downs, and Georgia wasn't. Cumberland threw a total of 18 passes. Georgia intercepted 6 of them, and Cumberland caught 2 of them, meaning Cumberland completed 3 times as many passes to the other team as it did its own. Cumberland had 15 turnovers, 6 interceptions, and 9 fumbles. Cumberland didn't achieve a single first down. Neither did Georgia Tech. Every play Georgia ran that went past the first down marker ended in a touchdown. Georgia Tech threw 0 passes and still had over 900 yards of offense. It would have been much more than that if it hadn't been for all the kick return touchdowns by Georgia and the turnovers by Cumberland. Almost every play of the game occurred on Cumberland's side of the field. Cumberland had negative 42 rushing yards and 14 passing yards, for negative 28 yards total. The final 2 quarters were shortened because it was 126-0 at halftime. Georgia scored 63, 63, 54, and 42 points in each quarter. Cumberland never got to the 50-yard line. The Cumberland quarterback was carted off the field 3 times. The only somewhat successful play by Cumberland was a blocked extra point. They formed a human pyramid and the kick was blocked. Unfortunately, the ball hit the Cumberland player in the face so hard he sustained extensive injuries.